Now we'll take a deep dive into how AssetAccountant works with Sage Intacct to fully manage the accounting for leases. There are two types of leases we'll look at. 1. An asset acquired using finance arrangements, being an asset finance lease. 2. A right-of-use asset.
The first thing I'm going to do as part of this demonstration is to create a new asset for us to attach some finance arrangements to. I'm going to do that through creating a journal entry in Intacct in the same way as for an asset that I purchased. So let me just call this my finance asset. Again, I will post that to the clearing account that we set up specifically for AssetAccountant. And let's say this is going to be £100,000. And then the other side of this entry will go to accounts payable. So I'm going to submit that into Intacct now. And then once that has been posted to Intacct, I can move across to AssetAccountant and just refresh my draft asset screen. That will bring in the new asset for me to add. So as before, again, I'll just set this up as an asset. Let's say this is going to be some machinery and equipment this time, and it's a cost of £100,000. Again, I can set the method for tax and for accounts depreciation as I like. So let's just say that's going to be 25% straight line. So I'll save that asset. Then I can move to the asset screen, and you can see the £100,000 is shown in the additions column. I can navigate to that asset, my financed asset, and you can see here, this is now showing the depreciation for the cost of the asset that's been brought through. Then from here, what I can do is I can attach a lease or a finance arrangement to that asset. So if I choose to do that, I'll say this is an asset financed plan. We'll have the lease start date on today. I can choose if I want to capitalize it as a hire purchase agreement and so on. And then I can enter the payment schedule. So let's say in this case, I'm going to finance the whole amount of the cost of the asset. And then in here, I can just put the payment plan. So let's say we're paying a £10,000 deposit on the first day, and then we're going to be paying £2,000 a month, monthly for 36 months. And then finally, we've got a balloon payment at the end of £25,000 as a one-off payment. So I can generate that schedule using the facts laid out there. AssetAccountant will then use a number of methods to work out the split between principal and interest. If you have an interest rate agreement, we will match as close as we can to that interest rate. Otherwise, we will just use month over 365. So once you've reviewed that, you can choose to use that schedule and then save it for there. And here you can see now in the record, we've added an asset and also a lease, some lease information here where you can see the interest that's accrued each month alongside the depreciation. So those will be posted as part of the journal and so on. So just moving into a journal now, what I'll do is create a new journal for the end of November. You can see I've already created a journal prior to entering that new asset and the finance arrangements for it to the 30th of November. So I'll create a second journal now to the end of November, and that will just show me the entries in respect of the asset I've just added. So you can see here, we've added the cost amount to the machinery and equipment cost account, and then started to depreciate the asset here with the £821 for the month of November. And then we've also entered in the lease information. So you can see here, we've entered the gross liability for both current and non-current, and then netted off the unexpired interest. Those are available separately, as I've shown in here. If you just want to disclose the principal, then you can just map the gross liability and the unexpired interest to the same account to get the net number and only show the principal. There's an amount that goes to a lease payment clearing account for you to match against your bank reconciliation. And then we also, every time you post a journal, look forward 12 months and make the movement from non-current to current. So that's the journal you can create for that asset. I will just go back into the asset now and show you some things that are available from the asset screen. Under the actions tab here, there's various things you can do here. You can remove the lease if you no longer need it. You can generate a lease schedule report, which is a full set of information to give to your auditors there. So we'll just have a quick look at that one in here. So this one has a comprehensive set of data as to how AssetAccountant has produced those numbers. You can terminate a lease from here and you can also refinance. So at some point here, let's say you want to refinance that arrangement in 12 months' time. This will show you the refinanced amount, and then you can enter a new payment schedule as required. There are also a number of reports that are available for leases as well as the asset. So the asset reports here will show you the depreciation numbers. There are also a number of lease reports that are available. So you can see, for example, a 12-month future view of payments that are due split out by lease. You can look at your lease export report, which is a comprehensive schedule of the information that we have in respect of all leases in the system. Or you can show the lease summary report that has the information that you need for your disclosures in your accounts and so on. So that's how an asset finance arrangement is entered into in AssetAccountant. What I'll show you now is how to do a right of use asset. So I will show this as a separate asset in the system, and I'll just put this in manually so you can see it. Again, all of these can be done if you've got a number of them. You can do these in bulk using the file import. But for demonstration purposes, I will just show you this manually. So let's say we're leasing a building. So I'll just call that my right of use building. My right of use building. I'll say that's a right of use asset. And let's say I'm going to do that as of today's date, the date I'm recording this demonstration. And then in here, what you can do is you can put the interest rate in. If you have annual adjustments that are built into the contract, or you're in a jurisdiction that allows you to model those, then you can put that in there, and then you would put the payments in. So let's say we're going to be paying £5,000 a month for 5 years. So let's do that for 60 months. AssetAccountant will do the calculation of the net present value for over the life of these payments, and then we'll do the calculation of what the interest component is and what the lease liability reduction is for those. Again, and you can see here that this will create the schedule in the record for you here. If you need to adjust the amount capitalized, you can do that for any reason. Make good provisions we have separately, so I will show you that shortly. And then the final thing you can do here is, again, just set up the lease liability depreciation for the right of use asset. So let's say that's over 5 years because that's how long that lease is. And then I can save that, and you can see that record is now being created for the accounts purposes. We're depreciating the book value of the asset and the lease liability. If you want to add a make good provision for that, then you can add here, you would say, this is the date. Let's say you want a £10,000 provision for cleaning that up at the end. If you want to adjust that for inflation, you can do, and then we'll do the calculation there. And then you can wind that back using a discount rate. These are generally the same, but just for illustrative purposes there, I've just put them as different numbers. And if I add that make good provision, you'll see the unwinding of the make good provision journals are created each month for you to create correct entries within Intacct. And again, similarly, if I go back to journals now and create the journal, another journal, that will add the right of use asset in this journal. So if I just choose that, then you can see here, this journal has now created the right of use asset that has gone to the account code that you'd like to charge that to. And we also have make good provisions going to the make good provision and the unwinding of the discount P&L account in there as well. There are various other reports available here. So one of the useful ones for right of use assets is the right of use movement report. For this one here, you choose the period you want to look at. And then again, if you want it in a PDF or a CSV format. So I'll just look at that for the month of November. And you can see what that shows is the movement in the lease over the period, as well as the movement in the asset. So this is the one I've just added, my right of use building, and you can see in November, there's an addition there. There's some interest charges and the payments. So that's my closing lease liability. It has the interest rate, and then you can also see some information for the asset. So again, that's a very useful report for your auditors to look at. So what we've looked at in this demonstration is an overview of how to bring an asset in and add a financing arrangement for that asset, produce the journals that you can then post back to Intacct, as well as looking at some of the reports. And then we had another look at how you create a right of use asset from the AssetAccountant system in order to be able to post those directly into Intacct. Further information is available on our website if you would like to do a deep dive in any of the areas we've covered, including how you do these additions in bulk if you are managing large volumes of assets, finance arrangements, or leases. Thank you for watching this video.